working with an Australian director, is it easier, or did you know Alex from prior?
I did actually. We had I'd sort of auditioned for him in the past, and we'd wanted to work together. So it was nice. It's nice you already have a familiarity with someone. And I was excited. I was like, finally, cool. We get to kind of do something together. And he's really collaborative, and he's a lovely guy. So it was a good time.
To be able to shoot back in Australia, also, was that a perk for you?
Really fun. Often you do things in very far-flung locations, and it was so fun to work in Melbourne. I have family and friends there, so it was great.
Were you able to take time off and go home, and did you take people on set and stuff like that?
Yeah, I brought my sister and my brother on set, and they got to meet Nicholas, so he was so nice, and he said hello to them, and they got a kick out of that. And I'm from Sydney though, but I did definitely got to go back up to Sydney, and Australia's a beautiful country, and I felt really lucky that I could work there, especially on a movie like this, which is a big studio movie. It's like
you can't tell the difference between Melbourne and New York,
I'm so glad
which
you say
is
that,
really nice to
it's
kind of.
Boston that we're supposed to be.
Sorry,
in,
but East Coast.
Well, East Coast, no, it would, yeah.
To work on a project like this where, because when I went in, I kind of had preconceived notions based on trailers and things what I've read, but I was surprised that there's all these twists and turns, which you don't realize that there's all these different themes going on within the film. So when you got the script, were you kind of surprised at what you were given, or?
I was. It was. It sort of starts out as one thing and really ends as another. And what I think Alex elevated the film to is he created a tone from the beginning which is so foreboding and eerie and dark, which you don't necessarily know if that's going to be there when you read it. It's just sort of unfolds as a very intimate drama, and you kind of, you're not quite sure where it's going to head. But he creates a world, he's so visual and so smart that it sort of firmly tells you already what you're going to see. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, it has a very thought-provoking ending, and it sort of bridges the gap between science and spirituality in a way. So it's sort of unconventional, I think, the finish.
Well, even better is among this kind of catastrophe or foreboding, it's actually a character piece between.
It's totally character
and so as an actor, it must have been
it's a very intimate story between a father and a son, and then a mother and her daughter, and these kind of characters trying to desperately, one's trying to solve a problem and one's trying to avoid one. So it's told through a very intimate story, very intimate eyes.
To be an actor, to kind of get that, then how did you kind of, I don't know, where do you source these emotions from, or did you kind of just, is it natural to kind of have these?
Well, I do my own personal work on the script, and Alex and I discussed a lot about the character and what her role was in the story, and developing that, and her and what he saw her as. And then I met with a single mother in Melbourne, because my character's a single mother, and because I don't have any children, and she was very helpful and spent time talking to me. And I approached it as best I could in terms of my research and my preparation.
If you had a child and something bad is going to happen to it, do you feel like you would kind of do the things that your character would do, or would you kind of approach it in a different way?
Well, Diana's a pretty specific character. I mean, she herself was abandoned by her mother, so she has a huge issue with her own child and her fear that she's going to turn into her mother, and so she's her own worst enemy, though, ultimately, because that's what does happen, and it's her fault for kind of ignoring the truth, because she desperately wants to avoid it. So I can't really compare myself to her just because of the tragedy she's had in her life, and I'm lucky enough to have had not that happen to me.
A lot of your scenes are, when I was watching it, it was very in the moment, and I'm just wondering how, as an actor then, how do you kind of, because obviously you're taking take after take after take, and how do you kind of like get into these things?
Sustain. Well, I don't know. I think each actor's, it's a pretty sort of personal relationship you have with acting, and I don't know. I guess my technique is different. It's everybody. I don't know. It's almost like a shaman-like thing. Like you don't really even want to talk about it. Sort of like it just sort of, evolves. I mean, I studied here in New York at the David Mamet School, and that's very kind of Meisner-based, which is sort of moment-to-moment work, and it's sort of, acting is reacting, that sort of thing. So I guess I start from there, but yeah, it's sort of very individual to each person.
Does it help to kind of play with all these other, because you're also on a television show with a lot of big, these really talented actors. Does it help to have these people to kind of watch them? Do you observe a lot? Do you find that you're, when you see other people do their thing, are you a good observer?
I think I'm naturally a pretty observant person. Like I'd say I observe that about myself, maybe. I mean, I can be a bit of a space cadet, but definitely working with someone like Nicholas or someone like Glenn Close, you obviously kind of watch and learn and see how they do things and how they approach things, and yeah, absolutely. Like with directors too, I try and observe and see how they approach me and work with me and things like that. So it's a lovely creative process. You know, it's all kind of part of it. It's great. It's great to be part of that world.
I know that sometimes when you rehearse something with Nick, you think that it would go a certain way, but when the cameras are rolling, he would try something new on you.
Yeah, he's very spontaneous.
Is that scary for you as an actor then, or is that kind of fun?
But scary's good, you know. Like, who wants to be safe? That's the most boring thing. I think it's great to be scary, and you know, if it fails, it fails, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, but at least you fail boldly, even if you don't know if you don't try. So I really appreciated that with him. You know, he threw some curveballs, which was good. It was good.
And acting with the children, I mean, what was it like to kind of work with these kids? And I know Nick was saying that he felt very uncle-like around the kid who plays his son. So what did you feel like when you're?
I felt pretty. I guess I felt sisterly, you know, because I don't have a child. But Lara is she's a very bright girl, and she's you know, very kind of, she's a really good kid, you know, really well behaved and like a lovely little girl. And I adored seeing her. It was my favorite part of the day would be seeing her, you know, and I obviously. We spent time together and outside of the movie to, you know, get to know one another, and her mother is lovely, and children are very refreshing. They're very candid, and that's great to have on a film set because it is never dull. Between them and Nicholas, it was like always something going on.
You're a very busy working actor in Hollywood, and I'm just wondering, do you ever get homesick, or is there a nice kind of team of people or other Aussies in Los Angeles or New York that you can kind of fall back on to kind of make you sane and not feel like?
I do. I've got a great network of friends here in New York now, and in Los Angeles too. Yeah, and some are Australian, some are American, English, you know, from all over the world. But obviously traveling, yeah, you do rely on your friends a lot more heavily than you perhaps would if you were. You know, at home with my family in Australia. So, but I've been doing it for a while now, for 10 years. So I'm fairly self-sufficient in a way. But saying that, I don't think I could do it without knowing that I've got the support from back home. You know, they're the source of the river, as it were.
Do you have any kind of pressure on yourself to maybe go back and, because now that you're a name, you can go back to Australia, maybe you can get funding for movies that are having, you know, like, do you find as an actor that you have this power, or do you want this responsibility?
A little bit. I mean, I have since gone home and done one or two things, and if it's the right project and it's a good thing, then I'm absolutely, you know, would be interested in it. So I'm always open to reading things and going back, and it's nice to know that I do have somewhere else to work outside of America. You know, that I cherish that, and I grew up in Australia and I learnt all my everything I know in Australia, really, you know, from when I was little. So it holds a dear place in my heart. Yeah, and I hope I can continue to work there as well.
One of your first films was with the Hong Kong director that is, you know, Clara.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm wondering,
Clara.
what was it like with working with her, and kind of, did you get any lessons from that experience?
Clara was, I mean, she's incredibly talented and very, you know, she's so passionate about film in a really pure kind of way, and so she has incredible taste and I really enjoyed working with her. And I was very young at the time, and I would like to do it again now that I'm a little more older and a little more confident, and I could probably, you know, engage a bit more in the whole thing. I think it was a pretty daunting task what we undertook on that film that I did with her, but it's a beautiful movie, and it's so unusual and such a great vision, and the kind of movie that I like. So I'm really proud that we did that together.
Hopefully you make more of those. Thank you very much.
Thank you
really
so
nice
much.
Talking to you.
You too.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Bye.
Thank you.